This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell. Joining me today are the Toledo Symphony's president and CEO, Zach Vassar, our music director, Alain Trudel, principal second violin, and artistic administrator, Merwin Sue, and we have a special guest today. That is a Toledo Symphony Lab newbie, Jori Jex, who is the executive director of the historic Valentine Theatre in downtown Toledo. Hang on, Jori, I got a little... There we go. Welcome to you.
Thank you.
Jori, you are executive director of the Valentine Theatre. We have a very special reason that you're here. First, before we get into that, I want to mention the upcoming concert, which is happening at the Valentine. It's called The Three Bs. That's the letter B. And it's happening this Saturday, October 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can find more information at ToledoSymphony.com. Now, we're going to talk about those three Bs and what that is all about. But first, we're going to talk about the big news that's going on vis-a-vis the symphony and the Valentine, and that is the new shell. This is like a band shell operation, right?
It's a shell game.
Yeah. I knew there were all kinds of, homophonic associations with that. What can you tell us about the shell?
Well, the Valentine opened on Christmas Day, 1895, and since that time, it has always been the hope that there would be an orchestra shell in that facility. It reopened the theater in 1999. We still didn't have the orchestra shell, and so for the last 20 years, we've discussed how important it would be to include that. And so our group, together with the symphony, began to start looking for funding to help us make that dream a reality, and we were able to do that. And over the last 2 years, we've worked very diligently, and we were able to actually have the shell constructed, and it is ready to go. And we had a little soiree just last week to celebrate with some folks who truly appreciated all the efforts.
Well, let's tell people what a shell is, just to make sure that they know what the purpose of this is.
So when you're walking on the beach and you step on something with your foot.
Take two.
May I?
Go ahead, Elaine.
So
please step in and save this.
Let's say that let's say that you have a violin, and you have the strings, and you have the little.
No, just kidding. Go ahead.
I didn't say viola. So let's say you have a violin, and you have the bridge, and your strings are all set up and all that, but you don't have the box that makes the sound, the body.
The reverberation of the amplifier.
Yeah. So the shell is what's around it, like the bottom of it and around it, and the little box that helps us make a sound that actually projects in the hall, and that's what the shell is.
So it's an amplifier, but if we're looking at it physically, how do we describe the shell? I mean, obviously it's named that for a reason. Yeah,
it's walls and a ceiling, and you want to think about when you go to a theater, you typically just presume that this is part of the infrastructure, but the walls are angled at a particular direction so that the sound hits it and bounces out into the house. And then the same for the ceiling. There are panels that are made of particular materials and angled at certain directions so that the sound comes out into the house. One of the great things about the Valentine is its great intimacy as a house. The music should fall right in your lap, but because it's an operating theater, there's 80 feet above the stage where sets go, and when we perform there, before any acoustic music would perform there, the sound goes straight up. And it's the same effect at the Stranahan, for example. Any theater will have that if it doesn't have a shell. So when we would do our Mozart concerts there, or our family concerts there, the sound would go up, not out. So the sound would be, you would still hear the right pitches, but it wasn't going to fall in your lap, and it would have generally in my ear, the sound of turning your treble all the way to the left, all the way down.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, Jori, you talk about this being a multi-year effort. In fact, you said, 20 years they've been talking about doing this sort of thing?
That's correct.
Yeah. What was the process then? I mean, I assume at some point you had to get somebody in to design the thing so it would fit the theater's aesthetic, right?
That's correct. And the first group we reached out to is the Wenger Corporation, probably most well known throughout the country for their the ability to create just these amazing structures. And we sat down because we wanted, we were hoping that the symphony would utilize the peristyle on a more regular basis. It would create a stronger partnership. And that was very important to us, and we so enjoy working with the symphony. So
let's go back. Did you say the peristyle, or did you mean the Valentine?
Did I say the peristyle? Oh, I'm so sorry. I meant the Valentine. I just said the peristyle.
I looked at Elaine like, did I just hear that right?
You know what? The new guy at the museum didn't work out. They're going to bring you in now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was thinking about that peristyle a second ago. So, no, the Valentine. So we wanted to figure out what we could do, and we just thought that it would enhance the Valentine so much more to be able to have that. But, it's a huge project, and it's also very costly. So by sitting down with Wenger, we discovered that it would be about a $500,000 project to do this. Yeah. And so by talking to the symphony, we started to do some research on how best to do this, and we approached the state of Ohio through their capital request funds that was administered at the time by Governor Kasich. Yep. And through their generosity, we were able to raise $400,000 from the state, and then Owens Corning and the Anderson Supporting Fund, provide the rest of the funding for that. So by sitting with Wenger and creating this show, we started to think what would be the best way to do it, and then it was a matter of they were submitting plans to us, and Zach and I would sit down and look at them and figure out how we can do that, along with our tech director. Because, the Valentine is, we have performances every weekend from September through June. So this
not a lot of time to build the thing, huh?
Right. And it had to be adaptable. We had to be able to bring it in, take it out, and throughout the year on a regular basis. So it was a huge learning curve for all of us, but one that was challenging, and I truly enjoyed the process.
So it's not your typical like band shell type deal. I mean, this is a pretty advanced piece of equipment that you have going on. What do you have storage for it then when you're not using it?
My favorite part of the story is that we tried to figure out where it would go, and
it's not in your garage, is it?
Can you wheel it out the back door? Well, no. There's a load-bearing wall that's about a foot too low. Can you put it into the pit and then take it down underneath the stage? It was about 6 inches too long. Everything was just slightly too big to use it, and there's no extra space backstage at the Valentine to throw it in the corner, because the stage needs to be used. So it was Tim Durham who came up with this fantastic concept of flying the entire thing up into that storage area above the stage when it's not being used on stage. But that required a massive amount of re-support within the walls of the Valentine. So the infrastructure itself had to be reinforced.
So it's not just the building the shell and letting it fly on its own. I mean, you had to do some work on the theater itself to make this work.
We do. I have some stats for you, which I think are fascinating.
Oh, we love stats.
We love stats.
Bring them on.
So, we work with Tiffin Scenic Studios, and they're an amazing company who were the actual, 20 years ago, came in to do all the theatrical preparations for the theater. They came in, and it was an 8-week project where they had to reinforce the stage so that it was capable of holding the shell. And so the ceiling itself is almost 5,000 pounds. Those are the ceiling pieces alone. The towers are about 11,000 pounds. And the counterweights to balance the towers are about 5,000 pounds. So total, we're looking at 20-some thousand pounds that this theater has to be able to hold, be able to bring in and out, roll off. And so it took 8 weeks to reinforce the stage so that it was capable of doing that. And that took 373 hours of 6 people on stage doing that, and about, again, an 8-week period. And then the actual construction of the shell took almost 400 hours, and that was with a crew of 4 people, and then the Wenger director of the program who came in. And so that was a 9-day project. So altogether, it was in the entire summer. Labe Electric came in and had to redo the wiring. So it was a huge project.
That's a big project.
Yeah.
Now, Merwin and Alan, are you going to be thinking about those 20,000 or so pounds hovering over your head?
About that. It's just like the ceiling panels are amazing because they each have this ability to rise and fall, and it really helps to shape.
Lower, not fall. lower.
Rise and lower. That's an excellent point. To raise and lower. But now that I know how heavy they are, I'm going to be a little more concerned watching them go up and down. But it makes a huge difference.
And they can go up and down in real time. So and it's very smooth. They're all each on their own line set. They are powered by a different controller backstage. So when we were experimenting at our what we called the Celebration, that was I think Jori's
Good
term.
one.
We saw them go up and down just to play with the acoustics. If it's a big brassy percussion heavy work, you might want to raise the ceiling a little bit, raise the roof. If it's more intimate, you might want to lower the roof. And it was just incredible to watch these things go up and down. And the audience was oohing and eyeing at them. It's just incredible. And then you think about how much they weigh.
Well, you could make this a great selling point for this particular concert because this is the public's first chance to see the shell and hear the shell in operation at the program this Saturday. Yeah. You could say, show up and see if it works. Show up and see if, if it falls or if it lowers, one or the other.
It's not falling.
No, that's not a good idea.
No, but it's funny, though, because when we had our celebration, none of us had heard it. So we invited some friends to listen, and the orchestra had never performed in it. Everybody was getting together for the first time for the season. They hadn't seen each other since summertime, so it was kind of old home week and new home week at the same time. But we all were excited and a little panicked. What do we do if we spent all this time and all this money and more work is required? But fortunately, it sounded amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Well, folks have their first chance to hear the shell at the Valentine in action. The concert is called The 3 Bs. It's happening this Saturday, October 12th at 2 in the afternoon. More information at ToledoSymphony.com. We're going to talk all about the 3 Bs coming up, but it is fundraising time here at FM 91. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the 3 Bs in just a few minutes. Now, if you're listening to us on the podcast version, don't forget, any time is a good time to support public radio. You can find out more at WGTE.org. It's Toledo Symphony Lab, and we're back. Today we're talking about a concert that's happening at the Valentine this weekend called the 3 Bs. That is the letter B. The 3 Bs is sort of like a mythological thing in the history of classical music. First came up in the 1850s. Originally, the 3 Bs were Bach, Beethoven, and Berlioz, and later on Berlioz was dumped in favor of Johannes Brahms. So the sort of holy trinity of composers is Bach, who is the father, Beethoven the son, and Brahms is the spirit. So for this concert, they've dumped Brahms. Now it's Bizet. So we've got Bach, Beethoven, and Bizet being performed Saturday, October 12th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon with the new shell at the Valentine. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I thought it would be interesting if I asked each of you to supply us with a letter B composer that would be your third B. And Jori, I know that we're going to play a little prank on your husband in a minute here. For people that don't know, you're married to David Jex, who's a composer, longtime educator as well. So he should have an answer to this question. We're going to give him a call. Hopefully he'll answer the phone. But before we do that, I want to go to you, Alain, and maybe you could tell us what your third B would be.
Oh, there are a few. But
just pick one.
Okay. The first one that came to mind was Berg.
Oh, Berg.
Actually, yeah, Berg, actually, because I love Wozzeck and I love the concerto.
We're talking about Alban Berg.
Alban
who was
Berg,
a 20th century composer, sort of a disciple of Schoenberg.
And Mahler.
and Mahler, yeah. But also wrote music that, a lot of casual listeners probably are not attenuated to. But
That's
somebody
true.
who holds a really important place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a second Viennese school.
But such incredibly beautiful music and just incredibly moving. It's like, now I'm kicking myself for not having thought of it. Berg's a perfect choice.
Well,
one of my
TSO
favorite
performed
concertos.
that violin concerto a couple of years ago, which he wrote in memory of the daughter of Alma Mahler and her husband at the time, who was, I can't remember.
Walter Gropius.
Walter Gropius, yeah. Well, good choice.
Okay.
We'll give you a little applause for that.
It's appropriate because I do believe Berg died from a bee sting. So to think of him as a bee composer.
That's a good point.
There you go. Yeah.
3 bee stings.
3 bee stings.
Or 2. He was the third bee. Speaking of third bee, you're up, Zach.
Well, I'm looking at a list which is quite comprehensive of composers with bee names.
Pick your finger and
It's amazing. No, I'm looking at there's many that I hadn't thought of. But I have to say that you've taken many of the composers off the table because you have the Brahms, you have the Bach, you have the Beethoven, you've taken Berlioz and Bizet now off the table.
Yeah, but that still leaves 740 other composers.
As this wiki page is telling me. So I had Bartók, Bieber, not Justin, but Heinrich, and
Bartók Bieber is a great name.
And,
it would be a great name.
I have the Beatles, and I have you, Brad. Those are my suggestions.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
I'm going to go with Bieber. Heinrich Ignaz Franz von Bieber, not Justin Bieber. Though there's a hilarious comparison of the two on Classic FM meme.
Just kidding. I'm kidding.
He wrote some wonderful works for violin, and I remember coming upon one of his sonatas when I was a kid, and it was the violin was doing an impersonation of cats, and it was one of these moments.
You don't mean the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, right? You mean like the animal.
It was amazing. You got Mr. Mistopheles in
You laughed, you cried.
It was better than Bieber.
All memories.
It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, but his ability to play with the sound of an instrument at that era, we're talking about, 1700s?
Didn't he write those mystery sonatas or the Rosary sonatas? Yeah.
Extraordinary composer.
Have you ever played any of those, Merle?
I just played the Passacaglia about a month ago.
Yeah.
So, and Rosary Cathedral.
It's really interesting, soulful music.
Yeah, it's and you just really feel like you're as a composer who was ahead of his time in thinking about how to use the tuning of the violin, how to use performance. I don't want to say antics, but to really make the expression more than it probably was at the time. And his music, as you could say about Bach at certain times, still sounds very fresh. It doesn't feel like it's as old as it is.
Yeah.
It's almost a sort of neoclassical sound to it.
I'll give you my choice quickly, and then we're going to make our little phone call to your husband, Jori. My choice is another Bach person, and
That's
that would
not
be
fair.
Well, it's totally
there
fair.
There were 17 of them.
So that gives me a wide, selection to choose from. But I would choose CPE Bach, and I only say that because when you listen to his music, especially his symphonies or his string symphonies, he is wildly inventive and interesting, and has all these little gestures that just come out of nowhere. It's sort of like, amplified Haydn. That sense of humor that Haydn had and unpredictability that was in his music, you really hear that throughout the works of CPE Bach. And as I mentioned, his symphonies in particular, I think, have these interesting little twists and turns that you think, gosh, there's no wonder that he had such a big influence on other classical era composers.
He would have preceded Haydn, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about the spirit of Haydn,
That's interesting.
right? He reflects that as well.
Just like Bieber reflects the spirit of cats.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you all agree. Good to know.
I'm surprised you didn't choose PDQ Bach.
No, although that would have been a good choice, too. Okay, the 3 Bs. Looking for a third B. Let's do our little experiment, Jori. We were talking during the break about your third B, and you said, well, you're married to a composer, so you are sure that he has plenty of 3 Bs on tap. So we're going to call him up. He doesn't know that we're calling, right?
No.
So hopefully he's going to answer the phone. Let me bring up our phone there. Let me dial the number you gave me. I'll try not to say it out loud.
Class, but
His name does not begin with a B, though.
You have to answer it, Jori.
okay.
Can we page him at the school?
We could.
Thanks for calling.
Darn
This
it.
is David Jex. Please leave me a message.
Hi, David. This is Brad Cresswell. I'm here with your wife, Jori, and we're doing Toledo Symphony Lab. And we thought it'd be fun to get you on the air with us, but you're obviously teaching or doing something much more important than what we had planned for you. So, okay? Thanks. Bye. Everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was a no-go with David. We'll have to try it again sometime. But that means that, Jori, you're on the spot, so you have to come up with a third B now.
Oh, I need to call a friend. This is when you bring the theater major into the lab, and I'm like, could we talk Shakespeare?
Yeah, Britten.
Shakespeare.
Britten.
There you
Britten.
go.
Shakespeare, Britten.
There you go.
Yeah,
you
Benjamin
go.
Britten.
Thank you. You saved me. Okay.
Midsummer Night's Dream, which is a great opera.
Yeah.
What are we going to do with Britain after Brexit?
I don't know. Be Brexit.
Just do the War Requiem every day.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Okay. Merwin, what's your third B?
Well, I had a slight inkling that Alain might actually choose this composer, but I was wrong. So I'm going to go with Lily Boulanger, a composer who we've discussed quite a bit already on this show, but a composer that we both really venerate. She had just a tragically short career, but she was the sister of the noted pedagogue, Nadia Boulanger, and she had this incredibly unique voice. She writes choral music, and I have to say I'm not normally somebody who listens a lot to choral music, and I just find that her voice in that realm in particular is incredibly unique. And we're discussing hopefully doing some more kind of like sizable pieces of hers with the symphony in the future.
Yeah, she died very young,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So there's hardly any music of hers that is extant.
We've done 2 of her brief kind of orchestral preludes in the last couple of seasons. I've played a couple of her short pieces for violin and piano, which I think were also kind of transcribed for flute as well. But most of her work is choral.
Yeah. You want to say something, Zach?
I just want to think about all the B composers that we didn't name.
Well, I was going to say we're going to do a lightning round. You each get a second choice. So your
Okay.
fourth B, okay?
All right.
Lightning round, fourth B. Elaine.
Oh, Bartok.
Bartok. What do you say, Zach?
I'd say Barber.
What do you say, Jori?
Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, good one. Why didn't we think of that?
Bernstein was going to be my choice.
Okay.
I'm totally...
Go for it.
Yes. I'm going to go with PDQ Bach then. I'll go with Arnold Bax. Bach's wonderful symphonist, great tone poems, wrote 3 beautiful violin sonatas, but loved the third.
I'm going to go with Elmer Bernstein. One more round. Let's
One
go
more
around.
round.
Yeah.
Whoa, okay.
We can play this game until you can't think of a B name, right?
Oh, wow.
Zach is pulling up his Wikipedia.
Well, I had Berlioz, but you mentioned it before. You mentioned him before.
I would have chosen Berlioz.
Yeah.
Because he was just crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Berlioz.
I mean, from 1830 on, it was
I know.
the music changed forever.
Absolutely.
Berlioz.
Bruckner.
That was where I was going.
Oh, you were going Bruckner.
So I just got. This is like watching the draft and wondering why somebody hasn't been drafted yet. Bruckner made it to the third round.
Yeah, that's another game we can think
I'm
of.
waiting for the 6th round to get my quarterback.
You do fantasy composer football. Jori, you got another
would be a
B
lot
in
of
there
fun.
somewhere?
I'm kind of cheating off of Zach's list here, but William Byrd.
William Byrd.
William Byrd.
Elizabethan era composer, English Renaissance. Yeah. Can you name any William Byrd compositions?
And I will defer to Merwin.
Let's call it.
Some sort of magical must have happened.
We got to call up David again.
The magical madrigal. There you go.
We're just biding our time until your husband calls in.
Come on, Dave.
So I think for me, I'd go with Ernst Bloch. Bit of an Ohio connection. He actually emigrated from Europe to Ohio to be the founding director of the Cleveland Institute of Music and wrote these wonderful pieces for strings. He just had a great voice for strings. The Shlomo for cello is beautiful.
Yeah,
and
he's done King Solomon.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Well, I mean, we should probably bring it to a close because we can talk 3 Bs all day long. 4 Bs, 5 Bs.
We're
I
having
think we
some
got
trouble
a
with the
size.
number 3. I feel like we lost that there.
Yeah, we have to expand that list. Well, the concert is happening Saturday afternoon. It's called the 3 Bs. It's happening at the Valentine Theatre, October 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. More information at ToledoSymphony.com. Don't forget, it's your first chance to see the big new shell in action and to hear it in action at the Valentine Theatre. We're going to take a break for our fundraiser, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the shell. We'll talk about the Valentine a little more. I also have a Valentine quiz for all of you. Anytime is a good time to support public radio, and you can do that right now by going online to our website at wgte.org, and thanks. Music of Beethoven there in the background from the Piano Concerto No. 3, the Rondo movement. That's one of the pieces that are being performed by the Toledo Symphony at their 3 Bs concert, Beethoven being 1 B. The other B is Bach, and the third B is Bizet. We've already heard about our own third Bs, but one thing that we didn't do was talk about some of the music that's going to be on this actual concert. I wonder if somebody wants to take the lead and tell us what's going to be.
I just remember thinking about this concert as we didn't know what the hall would sound like. So what should we perform? So I think that there's, a Bach orchestra a little bit smaller. Beethoven, we want to see what a concerto would sound like. Big, romantic Beethoven concerto. And then a symphony by Bizet. Underperformed symphony by Bizet, I'd say. And really to test the dynamic range of this space. So I'm very, very pleased.
So you knew that the shell was going to be there before you planned the repertoire.
Right. We actually hoped that the shell was going to be there a year ago, but construction and fundraising delays have their way. Yeah.
Well, we heard that story in the first part of our podcast today, talking about it. Elaine, you're conducting the concert.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Is it that often that you get a chance to conduct like these Bach orchestral suites?
Well, in the previous incarnation of this series, we would program something like the Bach, like Zach said, but we would never go like too much forward in the repertoire, like a repertoire that's more in the Romantic era, because of course we had to keep it to a minimal number of musicians because the space, not the space on stage, but the sonic space, and we didn't have a shell, of course, and that really created the problem for people hearing each other on stage, because in the hall is one thing, but also we need to be able to hear each other on stage.
Yeah.
And now when we had our first little tryout with everybody there, everybody heard the first note for the first time, musicians and public alike, it was an incredible revelation for everybody. Everybody was so excited in the orchestra. They still are. We've been talking about it for 2 weeks now. Yeah. So there's a big build up for us going there. And of course, last year when they saw that I programmed the Bizet Symphony. Now, the Bizet Symphony is Bach and Beethoven we know. But Bizet is always like, why
He's
would
the
you
third
program
man
that?
out here.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But it's, like Zach said, it's underperformed. It's the music of a genius. He wrote this, he was
very
16.
Young. Yeah.
I finished it, he was 17, but he wrote most of it when he was 16 as a teenager. And this is very fresh, of course, fresh music, and it's very virtuosic. But you have to have a good environment to play it. It's basically like the last movement is a first violin, like the whole first violin section concerto. For all of them is very, very demanding. And if it's in an acoustic that's very dry, it makes it very difficult. It's like walking on eggshell. But with the shell, with the new sound, basically it's a new hall. Like for us, basically it's like we're entering a new space that never existed before, and boom, it's there. The transformation is that big. So everybody's very excited to play it. It went from being very tentative when it was programmed last year. But of course, we had the vision. We said, well, no, next year is going to be a really good sounding stage and good sounding hall. And now when we played, that's why I had in the rehearsal that we did for the public, there was a part that was public and there was a part that was private after. And the part that was private, I did a little bit of the Adagietto from Mahler 5 to have the strings play together. And we did some of the Bizet already. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, just to hear what it would feel like, what it would sound like, and already you could see people, the shoulders coming down. Okay, this is going to be fine.
A sense of relief. Huh?
Oh, yeah, well, and excitement, even more than relief. It's like total excitement. So it's a good counterpart if you have Bach that is also very festive. I want to have something very festive to open, and the orchestra suites are very festive to open those first movements. And there's some of my favorite music. The last two suites are incredible harmonically, and also the tunes that they have in them are like, and then after that we go to Bizet and finish with Beethoven. And for Beethoven, we have one of the really, really great pianists of this generation who just he was one of the youngest finalists. He came in second at the Chopin competition in Warsaw. That's a big deal. And we're very part of my job is to scout and to see how can we get them before they hit the big time, and that they're not affordable anymore.
Before the paycheck goes through the roof.
Exactly, and before they sign with a huge agency. And we're pretty good at that. Merwin does a great job, and we work, and we got this Charles Richard Hamelin. He's going to be fantastic in Beethoven's Third Concerto. Again, something we wouldn't have played before in that environment.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to hear about all those pieces. I mean, that Bizet symphony will probably be familiar to people. I mean, it's something that I play it fairly often on the radio when I have a chance. Remarkable that he was so young when he wrote it, still a student. Was it ever performed during his lifetime? I don't know that it ever was, actually.
That's a good question.
Yeah, because it was not something that people looked at and thought, oh, this is the work of a genius. I mean, it was like his term paper, and it ended up being filed away somewhere for a long time. So
it was a piece I remember that Stokowski would really champion. He was very, very happy about that piece. And the slow movement, at least under his baton, always sounded to me like incidental music from an opera. You could tell that Bizet was going to go on and write operas.
Yeah, he was headed in that direction.
It's just, it's lovely music, but it feels like it's a prelude to things that will come.
Yeah, totally. I do have a quiz. Jori, you don't know this, but we have a theme music for our quiz. Speaking of Beethoven. Okay. This is just a quick little quiz. It's called The History of the Valentine. Jori, you have to wait until everybody else gets a chance to answer, right?
Understood.
And then
you
that
have
way...
to get them all right.
Yes.
It's a little pressure.
That's right. We can always edit it later, right? The History of the Peristyle quiz.
I truly apologize for that.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It's your first time, I understand.
I was nervous.
History of the Valentine quiz. Okay, who was the Valentine Theatre named for? This is a multiple choice, okay? Was it Rudolph Valentino? Was it Saint Valentine? Or was it Valentine Ketchum? Which one? You say three?
One. Yep.
Yeah, good one. Named for Valentine Ketchum, actually built by his son, George Ketchum.
Oh, I thought it was Ash Ketchum who was the son. No Pokemon fans here, just me.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay. We take 1 point away from Merwin, so he's -1 right now.
-1, and Zach +1.
That means you're almost caught up.
Okay. The Valentine first opened its doors on Christmas night in 1895. What was the production? Was it A Christmas Carol, Rip Van Winkle, or Hansel and Gretel? Which of those? Jori, don't be telling people what it is.
I'm going to go for
She's
two.
giving you clues.
Yeah, we're all going to go for number 2.
LA has Wikipedia up right now. I just want to point that out.
No, you can't do that.
I know nothing.
No, that's my line. Okay, number 2, Rip Van Winkle.
Yeah, I'm happy that he said it, because if he asked me what number 2 was, I wouldn't be able to say it.
No. I'm taking a point away. Okay. Here's another question. Valentine Ketchum's son, George Ketchum, actually built the theater, and among other things, that he did in town, he owned a local professional baseball team. What were they called? Were they the Toledo Mud Hens? Were they the Toledo Tornadoes? Or were they the Toledo Mommies? 1, 2, or 3.
Let's go with the Tornadoes. Oh, that
No,
sounds so
not
possible.
the Tornadoes.
Well, let's go with the mommies.
Do you even know what a mommy is?
It's an alternative to a papa.
Okay. That's much better than what I had. Okay.
Where's the sad trombone sound effect when you need it?
That's the very sad trombone.
It's a bass trombone.
Yeah. Okay. How many seats are in the current Valentine Theatre? Are there 900 seats, 901 seats, or 902 seats?
Oh, wow.
901.
901. It makes sense that you guys would know that. But my question is, where is that odd seat? I mean, is there
its
just
own
like a seat
section.
up in the balcony somewhere?
It's for the Phantom.
I never found it.
I mean,
It
Jori,
sits up by the chandelier.
you're the executive director. Who in the world thought it was a good idea to have that one extra seat?
I know. I completely understand. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
See, this way they can say, look, at the Valentine, we have more than 900
More
seats.
than
there you
900
go.
seats.
That's it. That's it. And you can also say to somebody, you're sitting in the special seat. It doesn't matter what seat they're sitting in. You can say, you're in the 901st or 901st.
Wow, I can't wait till we get to 901 episodes.
I
You'll be
love-
like thrown.
My 4-year-old would have gotten that one right.
I'll be 900 by
901.
then. Hey, that's what we do here. All right. When it was built, the Valentine Theatre had a very distinctive feature. What was this distinctive feature about
Had
the
one
building
extra seat.
itself? Besides one extra seat. And it can be any number of these, actually. I'm just going to put a few out there. Was it hot water baths, a cantilevered balcony, incandescent lights? Any, all, 1, 2, 3, which of those do you think?
Let's go for all of the above.
All of the above. They built a whole bunch of dressing rooms. I think there were 18 dressing rooms that all had running hot water for a bath.
Wow.
They had incandescent lights, which were a luxury at the time, and especially the cantilevered balcony, which, as you know, a cantilevered balcony is a balcony that comes out, doesn't need columns,
Right.
so they weren't blocking people's view. Although the architect who actually designed that balcony wouldn't let his family sit underneath it. he sat underneath it himself,
It's true.
I'm glad you're here, Joey. See, these guys never believe when I come up with these questions that are true. So now I've got you here to vouch for me.
To vouch, and that was the second one in the country. That was Edward Fallis. So it was the second cantilevered, and the first one being in Chicago.
Yeah.
We would love to be able to tell them 125 years later, you did a great job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can still sit under it.
Yeah.
Still sit under it.
Amazing, and it's never fallen down, right?
No.
It
You're
lowers,
like, don't even
it lowers.
speak of such things. Here's an extra credit related to that question. There was something unique about the seating arrangement, the arrangement of the seats in the Valentine at the time. Can you tell me what it was? Not multiple choice. Just see if you can. This is extra credit.
They swiveled.
No, not that they swiveled.
They had the thing that you stand up and they collapse.
They collapse or you collapse.
Well, no, the thing, the seat.
I understand this retractable seats or whatever they are.
What do you call that?
I don't think so. I don't know, but according to my
Oh, I
information,
know. They had armrests.
no,
They had
Cup holders.
no,
They
no.
were. I know.
This is like
I know.
1890s.
They were
we're talking here.
padded seats.
No, they actually arranged the seats more or less in rows. You had the seats in rows instead of like very
Columns?
curved,
Okay.
so that basically people's views again were not obstructed. Right?
I didn't know.
Yeah,
Okay, so Jori didn't know that. It cannot be true.
that's okay. I may have made it up. Okay, during the 1970s, the Valentine briefly played host to which local organization? Was it the Toledo Symphony, the Toledo Ballet, or WGTE
1970s?
in the 1970s? Yeah.
No, not the symphony. I'd say.
I'm going to go with WGTE.
Yep, WGTE, the TV station at the time, was in the Valentine
Right.
for a little while there. Last question. I know you're breathing a sigh of relief. Valentine Theatre was famously renovated in the 1990s, as we talked about. Went through like a 21-year, I believe, planning period to renovate the theater to its current state. What was the first organization to perform at the Valentine Theatre after its grand reopening? Was it Toledo Opera, Toledo Ballet, or Toledo Symphony? Which of those three put on a show?
I would say probably the opera.
Good.
But don't ask me which one.
They did Tosca,
Rip Van Winkle.
actually. It was Rip Van Winkle. You know,
But
the opera.
that wasn't the opening concert, wasn't it? Like
They did a gala.
yeah,
Had a big gala.
But the first performing organization to put on a show there after the renovation was Toledo Opera. Yeah, and they did not do Bizet or Boccherini or Berg. They do a production of Lulu for the grand opening.
I mean, I got to say how much fun it is for us to think about this as a great acoustic for symphonic music now, but it's always been a great opera house. Mm-hmm. It's so amazing to see live opera there.
Yeah. Well, I think that we have just a little bit of time left, so I'm going to give you a final word if anybody wants to talk about what's happening with the concert, especially in regards to the shell, which is kind of this is probably the biggest architectural development in the history of the theater since the end of the 1990s. Anybody have a last word about that?
I would say that it adds this sense of sparkle to the performance that you could argue doesn't exist at any of the places that the symphony performs. And I moved around the hall a lot when we did our trial rehearsal there. And the upper frequencies just sang to the point where Nancy Landrum, our wonderful harpist, was playing the harp in a bit of Tchaikovsky, and Kirk Toth asked Alain if it was mic'd. Just blossomed so much. At points, the triangle was way too loud because we're used to playing so loudly to have the sound come out into the house. And it's going to be a little bit of a learning process for us to let the house do the heavy lifting. And that's
going to be your job, Alain.
Yes,
A
absolutely.
lot of that, finding the balance. Yeah.
Which we did already in the second part of that rehearsal. We changed people around, we moved them around. And and in the back we opened a little bit the doors next to the percussion just to let that bit of sound go through.
You put the mute on the triangle.
No, but we the one thing, only one thing to say is that this is a really big deal. It's a big deal, game changer, big deal, and everybody should come and hear it.
And people will definitely notice your audience.
Completely, absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where if you've never had the chance to really test drive a really powerful vehicle, and you go, wait, well, this vehicle gets me from point A to point B just fine, and then you test drive the other one, and you're like, oh, that's why people buy these things. And all of a sudden, there's so much of an ease and a comfort to be able to produce the volume of sound that you're hoping for in your mind's ear, I guess. And then you're able to just produce that without effort, and it's really just liberating. So it's so much fun to be able to play that.
I would do the same analogy, but use wine. It's like when you used to drinking $5 wine, all your life, and all of a sudden you get a $50 bottle. You're like, whoa, where have you been all my life, right?
I'd also like to thank the theater technicians and the acousticians who came through, and they worked so hard this summer. And for our folks who work with us throughout the year, they did say to me that it was an incredible experience and one that many folks don't have the opportunity to have to be able. And I guess I was a little naive when those big trucks pulled up. I thought a lot of the shell would be constructed and we just had to load it in, but no, it came in boxes with millions and millions of pieces. They literally put it together screw by screw, and they said it was it was an incredible challenge and a wonderful learning experience.
I imagine.
How many Allen wrenches were used?
I wonder.
It's not
I want to see the directions. Did they have directions in French too, just in case?
They do. They actually, Wenger sends a gentleman out who just directs it every single step of the way, and he goes from theater to theater doing this. So.
You didn't see him holding the paper and staring at it and then turning it upside down.
Turning it upside down.
Anything like that?
No, but it was amazing. So it was it was an educational and artistic achievement, and we thank everyone involved.
And it's beautiful.
And it's beautiful. Zach and I picked out the colors, and boy, were we nervous. But we did okay.
It's like decorating your living room forever.
Yeah. 20 years worth of living room decoration. Okay. Well, I think we'll bring it to a close now.
All right.
Again, the concert is happening at the Valentine Theatre this Saturday, October 12th, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. More information at ToledoSymphony.com. Music of Bach and Bizet and Beethoven on the program, the 3 Bs. This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes of this program as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. Don't forget, you can check out all the upcoming events at the Symphony by visiting their website, ToledoSymphony.com. Also check out the various social media outlets, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. My thanks to Zach Vassar, Alain Trudel, Merwin Sue, and our special guest, Jori Jex. I'm Brad Cresswell, and you've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.